Welcome to today's session from Bhagavad Gita as it is. We are on chapter 3, Karma Yoga, and we'll be covering verses 11 to verse 20. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mukam karoti vachalam brahmam lakayate. Yat kripatanam vande shikram diyatayam bhavan madhram shri chaitanya. Chapter 3, Karma Yoga, verse 11. Devan bhavya yatanena te deva bhavyantu vaha parasparam bhavayantah shreyah param avapsyatha. Translation: the demigods, being pleased by sacrifices, will also please you, and thus by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. Verse 12. Ishtan bhogan hi vo deva dasyante yagya bhavitaha tair dattan aparadaya yebhyo yo bhunkte stena eva saha. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, that is the sacrifice, will supply all necessities to you, but he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. Verse 13. Yajna shishta shinah santo muchyante sarva kilbishah bhunjate te tva agama papad ye pachanti atma karanat. Translation: the devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. Verse 14. Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhavah yajnad bhavati parjanyo yajnah karma samudbhavah. Translation: all living bodies subsist on food grains which are produced from the rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, that is a sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. Verse 15. Karm brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yajne pratishthitam. Translation: regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. Verse 16. Evam pravritam chakram nanuvartyatiha yaha aghayur indriyar ramo mogham partha sajivati. Translation: my dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice thus established by the Vedas certainly leads a life full of sin, living only for the satisfaction of the senses. Such a person lives in vain. Verse 17. Yastva atma ratir eva syad atma triptas cha manavah atmanya eva cha santushtas tasya karyam na vidyate. Translation: but for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. Verse 18. Naiva tasya krite nartho na krite neha kaschana na chasya sarvabhuteshu kaschid artha vyapashrayah. A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. Verse 19. Tasmad asakta satatam karyam karma samachara asakto hai acharan karma param apnoti purusha. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the Supreme. Verse 20. Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim asthita janakadayaha loka sangraham evapi sampashyan kartam arhasi. Translation. Kings such as Janak attained perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. So, chapter 3, as we were discussing last week, is, as the title says itself, it's Karma Yoga. And the analogy of the tree we were talking about the other day, that how tree serves everybody regardless whether one is taking the fruits from the tree or the wood from the tree will grow back and will serve others in the selfless manner. So we have to try to achieve the spiritual connection with the Almighty by performing our day-to-day life. So we have to have some kind of balance between our daily lives and our spiritual connection with the God. So that is only going to be possible when we are going to give up the results of our activities and we are going to just do the activities with the goals in our mind, and we surrender our results unto Krishna, and we know that the best will be given to us. Krishna will give us to the best of our abilities, and he is going to provide everything for us. But we have to do the work, we have to do the karma, but without getting attached to the results. This was from verses 1 to 10, and from verses 10, I think Krishna began telling about how one has to work, without getting attached to the work, and we shouldn't be having any selfish motivation behind our karma, our daily work, and without doing your work with any selfish motivation is a very advanced stage of the spiritual realization. So Krishna is explaining how to progress on such a level. Is that in verse 11, Krishna says that when the demigods, they get pleased by the sacrifices, they provide the prosperity to everyone. The existence becomes purified by performing the yagyas. When the existence becomes purified, and when our mind, our thinking, everything is purified, then Prabhupada says the path of liberation is going to lead to Krishna consciousness, and that is the need of the society, as said by Prabhupada in the purport. And further on in the verse, Prabhupada explains that okay, we are offering all the yagyas, all the sacrifice to the demigods, but who is actually supplying the gifts to the demigods? that they are in return giving it to the society. So the original powerhouse is the Lord himself. So we shouldn't be misusing the yagyas for our own satisfaction only. We should be actually offering the results to Krishna, because Krishna is the one who is giving all the fruits of all the sacrifices to us. Now the easiest is the Sankirtana Yagya, which was told by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 500 years ago, and if we accept that, then everyone will be in the Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada explains. Verse 13 tells that everything, including the food which we eat, if it's was prepared and offered to Lord Krishna, it is not going to be classed as food for our personal enjoyment. It will be something which has been offered, and then the remnants or the prasad has been taken by the person who has offered it to Lord. So this is also one of the process of following the Sankirtana Yagya, by offering the food which is a necessity for everyone to live, to offer that first to Lord, and then eat the remnants or the prasad. Now in verse 14, the cycle of how the food comes about is explained, that everyone is surviving on the food, and food, the crops, they are dependent on the rain, and the rains are produced by the sacrifices to the God, and the sacrifices are coming from the prescribed duties. So Supreme God, he is the master of even the demigods, and when he gets served all the limbs, they will get served nicely. All the demigods who are in charge of the rain, like Indradev, Chandradev, who is in charge for providing the taste in the food, in the vegetables and the fruits, and of course Varun Devta, who is in charge of the water bodies. So worshipping Lord, everything, or all the administrators of the Lord, they get worshipped automatically or simultaneously, because they are the limbs of the Lord. Different limbs, and but we have to just remember that what we can and what we cannot offer to Lord Krishna. So if we do that way, there will be no scarcity of the food supply in the world. In verse 15, it's further explained that by doing so, all the conditioned souls can make sure that they will go back to the Godhead. So if we don't follow the process properly, then we'll be binding ourselves with our day-to-day activities within this world, because we'll be attached to the results of our activities. Offering our results to, whether it's money, knowledge, or any kind of results we are having from our work, if we are offering that to Lord, knowing that he is the one who is the enjoyer, and he's the one he's the doer and the controller, we can achieve the state of renunciation and become Krishna conscious. In verse 16, Krishna further instructs Arjun that if you don't follow your duties in such a way, then the life will be full of sin. So if you're just doing the sacrifices for the demigods and not thinking of Lord Krishna and not offering the results to him, then it's just a sense of moral code, which Prabhupada says in the purport. So we should not just limit our progress up to the morality level only. We should hope and work in such a way that we are able to achieve the Krishna consciousness. In verse 17, it's further instructed to Arjun that just taking pleasure in the selfish motivation is not a good life, but the life or a person who is taking pleasure in the soul level, on the soul level, and who has realized that that I'm not just a body, I'm not just a matter lump of matter. My body is not just that, but I am part and parcel of Lord Shri Krishna. Now that person is fully satisfied, and there is no further duty for such person, because by having Lord as a focus in every activity of his life, this person becomes Krishna conscious, and he is not just interested in the material activities as they are for his selfish interest. Rather, he is doing the activities in such a way that they are pleasing to the Lord, and they are going to be leading the person to the back to Godhead stage ultimately. So in verse 18, it's further told that a self-realized person who is doing prescribed duties and offering the results to Lord, living in Krishna consciousness, and who is in the shelter of the Lord, is doing sufficiently in his life in fulfilling his or her duties. In verse 19, it's explained that without being attached to the results of your duties, you get attached to the Supreme Lord. And in verse 20, example of King Janak is given, because he lived his life as a Krishna conscious king. He attained the complete perfection by doing his prescribed duties. He did for the sake of betterment of his citizens, and though he was the father of Sita and father-in-law of Lord Sri Ram, but he was a great devotee of Lord, so he was able to do his duties as a transcendentally situated person. And similarly, in this situation on the battlefield, Arjun is Lord Krishna's eternal friend, and vice versa, and there was no need to fight the battle, as Prabhupada says in the purport. But even after explaining to the other side so many times, when the other side failed to accept that, there was no way the war could have been avoided, and so the war had to be fought. And so Krishna was encouraging Arjuna to do his duty, his prescribed duty, because that was in the interest of the world at that moment. So a person who is following Krishna consciousness doesn't mean that he or she is living completely as a hermit. He or she is living their day-to-day life in the world, doing any normal jobs, occupations, but they offer the results to the Lord, and this way they are behaving in such a way that other people can also follow them and follow the Krishna consciousness. Now further, from tomorrow, from verse 21, this will be explained that how this can be done, that how others can follow a devotee and live their day-to-day lives, doing everything we have to do in this world, but doing in such a way that the results of our activities are dovetailed to Lord Krishna, that we don't have any selfish interest in the results. We have the goal in our eye, but in our eyes, but we understand that Lord Krishna, he is the ultimate enjoyer of those activities, of the results, and we partake the remnants of the results, which means giving part of your earnings to help preach the name of the Lord, and trying to eat the food day to day, on day-to-day basis, first offering it to Lord Krishna, which becomes sanctified, which is free of onion and garlic, which is vegetarian, and trying to listen to the scriptures and understand them with the help of the senior devotees in the movement, in the ISKCON movement, who can explain the Shastras clearly to us, because they have learned from the self-realized people, and they in turn they have also become self-realized. So we'll continue tomorrow from verse 21 of chapter 3, Karma Yoga. So I wish you all a very blessed week ahead. Thanks for joining. Hare Krishna. Hari Om Tat Sat.